Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I'm privileged to have a very senior and successful individual from the development sector, Nidhi Bhasin, with me. Nidhi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Nidhi is the Deputy CEO of Concern India Foundation. So, Nidhi, what would you say are three key milestones in your life or your career?
Okay, so I think I can start by around 25 years ago when I think all my friends and my peers were looking at probably doing their MBAs or so-called something more professional. I thought of doing something which would probably be more impactful and probably where I'm able to reach out to the lowest denominator in the society. And I thought of doing my social work post-graduation from Delhi School of Social Work. And that was 25 years ago, and there's no looking back. And I'm as excited about being a part of this sector as what I was 25 years ago. So that was my first biggest milestone. The second biggest and the most beautiful milestone was when my daughter was born 17 years ago.
Wow.
I think that completely changed my life. I've learned so much with her, and I've grown so much as a human being with her. And of course, adolescent years, so we struggle all the time. I hope I can survive it, but it's been a beautiful journey with her. And last and not the least is when about a few years ago I became, I think, this youngest deputy CEO in Concern India Foundation, and I was still in my 30s. So I think for me it was a very big motivator. So yeah, I think more of these three are my biggest milestones.
Congratulations on that achievement. That's fantastic.
Thank
So, Nidhi,
you.
let's talk about the Concern India Foundation.
Yeah.
Tell me about the work you do at the foundation.
Okay, so Concern India Foundation is actually almost 30 years old organization, and we work across the country. And the idea is to provide financial and non-financial support to grassroots organizations which work with passion and purpose, but are strapped for funds. So we help to not only we give them financial support, but we also help to build their capacities. We work with them on their planning and the systems. The idea is that when we wean off and we are no longer supporting them, they should be able to sustain themselves, be self-reliant. And we, in the last 30 years, have supported over 1,000 NGOs across the country. And we basically work in three fields, that's education, health, and community development. And the idea is to help people help themselves and help them to live a life of dignity and self-reliance.
And, when you do all this work, talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges you face.
Okay, so I think in the sector we are dealing with human lives and human lives which are disadvantaged. So with every life comes a big challenge. So it's full of challenges, but if I really have to look at currently the key challenges out here, I think it's in context to the donors, because while donors nowadays expect you to deliver international quality work, but when it comes to actually covering up the cost to deliver that work, they expect us to probably work on a voluntary basis, or they expect us to probably pay the lowest possible cost. So I think that I feel that most of the donors and corporates should actually realize that while they're paying for the services for, let's say, legal work or HR or financial services, they should also treat this work equally important and pay adequately. And what happens is there is a spiral effect of this, because the donor is not allowing us to spend that kind of money. We are not able to attract the best or the brightest quality people out here. So resource becomes a very big problem, and we're forever compromising. So it's probably got a spiral downward effect out here. So I think that needs to be addressed, and that I would say is currently the biggest challenges.
And when I was reading about you, I found that you focus in the areas of education, health, and community development. Tell me a little about each of these areas and what work you're doing, as well as what are some challenges you face here.
Okay, so as far as education goes, we believe in making education accessible to the socially and economically disadvantaged. This is both formal and non-formal education, and we work in rural, semi-rural, urban, tribal areas. And
Mhm.
sometimes we make tailor-make projects to suit the need of the community.
Mhm.
Of course, challenges are there out here, continue to be there because, again, we are dealing with a certain community where education is not their priority.
Mhm.
Probably livelihood is more of a priority, and especially we are very aware that a lot of them want to engage their children into work because they need to earn a livelihood out there. So dealing with those issues become a very big challenge. I think education and continuity of education, because we are dealing with a lot of migrant workers.
Mhm.
So that continuity is again a very, very big problem out here.
Okay.
The second thing that we are dealing with is health. So we work on curative, preventive, and rehabilitative health, and we work on adolescent health for the elderly, for children, for women, for people with special needs. So it's across board, and again. Similar challenges. I think in all our sectors there are similar challenges because need is something else, and making them realize that something. Let's take example of adolescent health. While we may be able to convince a particular community why their children, especially girls, need to get educated, but when it comes to adolescent health, they are not very open to that. So dealing with those problems again is very very challenging. And the third issue that we deal is the community development. So we basically are trying to, wherever we work, we're trying to make the community self-reliant. We try and make kind of an impact, social and economic impact out there. So we deal on issues from livelihood to income generation to natural resource management to special needs. And I think, especially in the community development area, the biggest challenge is the funds, because while in education and health sometimes you can see the results immediately, but if you're doing working on a natural resource management project or you're working with farmers, sometimes the result can take up to 4 to 5 years. So dealing with that, convincing your donor about why they need to look at a long-term project
Mhm.
is again a big challenge out there.
Very interesting. And Nidhi, you said that you've been here doing work for 30 years. You must have been tracking a lot of the people who have, you know, got sustenance nurtured and have been nurtured by you. Can you give me some examples of some amazing successes that have come from Concern India Foundation? Without
Okay.
giving names, of course.
Sure, sure. So I think right now, if I really talk about it, instead of talking about an individual story,
Mhm.
I think last 1 year showed us actually how our work has impacted, especially in the field of education. So I think about 3 or 4 years back, we started talking a lot about technical education, digital education, while we were providing basic education in our NGO with our NGO partners. But we started emphasizing and spending a lot of resources on ensuring that the digital education reaches these children. And I think that was a brilliant thing because when this pandemic happened last year,
Mhm.
most of our projects were able to continue in spite of the socio-economic backgrounds they came from. And I can actually say, yes, very proudly say that more than 75% of our beneficiaries were able to access digital and virtual education in the last 1 year.
Mhm.
So, from how the rate has been, I think it was a brilliant rate. And so that I think is from my point of view, a very big success story that thousands of children were able to access education in the last 1 year.
Mhm.
But if you talk about individual cases, so we do a lot of higher education scholarship programs
Mhm.
where we provide fees for their maybe engineering or maybe medical or hotel management. And we started this about 5 years back, and in the last couple of years, a lot of stories have started coming because they all have started being placed.
Mhm.
So very recently, one of the boys from Bangalore, who was basically actually came from a story where he would study under a street lamp,
Mhm.
and that's how he survived. And today he's finishing his last term right now, semester right now. He's already got an offer from one of the leading IT companies, and he's going to start with, I think, a package of something like 12 lakhs a year.
Wonderful.
And from actually not having fees to pay for his engineering to being able to earn that kind of money, it's again a big motivator for us.
I can imagine. And it says a lot first about the individual, of course, but about all the support you have given him. And I'm sure, he will be an example for so many other children in the foundation, isn't it?
I hope so, yes. Another example is, again, since we talk about three issues, so I'll give you examples in
Yeah,
all. That's okay. I'll give you examples in all
absolutely.
three
Please,
issues.
please
Yeah.
give.
So again, I'm going to give you like a wider example where how in terms of health,
Mhm.
again the pandemic started in March, and how our team quickly responded to that. And by the first week of April in 2020, we were actually helping the government hospitals to build the infrastructure in terms of reaching out to people. So we helped a lot of hospitals with the ICU units, with the X-ray machines, ECG machines, monitors, everything, ambulances,
Mhm.
and we did it. And we worked in Delhi, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana, and I think that and the way the team worked for all of this, and I think for us it was one of the first few experiences dealing with the pandemic,
Mhm.
and so that according to me is, yes, the team was ready to deal with an emergency like that, and yeah, truly a success story for us there.
And
And
this is something which I would imagine is not just the team being ready, but also having the courage to become a frontline worker. To be
yeah,
out
and
there.
I think I'm really not surprised, but I'm really motivated with the fact that each one in our team actually came forward. There was no Saturday, there was no Sunday. Of course, it came from the support of the board, because our board has to agree to do this.
Correct.
But the teams actually got into the ground, started working on it, responded, and yeah. So it's something.
Fabulous. And you're giving me the third example of community
Yes, of
development.
course, of course. So again, I think in terms of we started working on natural resource management, water sustainability, and farmer groups about 10 years back, and that time water was still an issue which people had just started talking about. And I think in the last 10 years, we have been able to replicate a lot of our water programs, and which are basically to deal with less with the environment, but more with farmers and their livelihood.
Mhm.
And so, because we are talking about water sustainability out here, and I think we have reached out in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Orissa, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, many states. And I think in the last few years, we reached out to over 50,000 farmers.
Mhm.
And that for us is that, and now we have supporters coming to us and saying, okay, we want to replicate the same programs.
Mhm.
And so these are, I mean, when you look at a farmer, and where probably the farmer would be earning maybe 3,000 or 4,000 earlier, but is able to probably triple his income, is again something which we feel is been very, very impactful out there.
Interesting. So, you must be getting a lot of people reaching out to you for support. How do you identify and decide on who to support and who not to support?
Tough one. So, Ashutosh, actually, we do not support individuals. As I mentioned to you earlier, that we support grassroots
Okay.
organizations. But to identify these grassroots organizations, we have a full-fledged system in place. We have a very strong due diligence system where
Mhm.
we vet each partner NGO,
Mhm.
and we ensure that they are a credible organization, because end of the day the donor is kind of trusting us with their money. And of course we see the passion out there, passion and purpose, and what is their whole idea behind doing something, this kind of a project is very, very important. So we kind of, our teams get into action, and we kind of work with them to figure out why we should support them. But of course I think the biggest thing is passion.
Interesting. The Concern India Foundation has been there for 30 years. Tell me about what are the core values the organization believes in.
Okay, so of course, honesty, accountability, transparency, credibility, and commitment and integrity. So these are our core values,
Mhm.
and I think that is the reason I can again very proudly say that a lot of donors continue to trust us over so many years.
Interesting. And I've spoken to many people in the development sector and the social sector, and I've often wondered what is the difference in leadership style in the development sector versus the corporate sector. Is there any significant difference because you are a lot of volunteers and seeking accountability for volunteers is a different challenge. Just wanted to know your thoughts.
Okay, so first, we as an organization, we don't take volunteers.
Oh, you don't.
We don't take volunteers, but what we do a lot is do a lot of corporate employee engagement work, which is basically corporate employees come and volunteer with us. But that's a very systematic kind of volunteering, and that the corporate keeps a tab about their commitment levels. But as far as our team goes, I think we say that, yeah, even if it's limited payment to them, but it is all they all are paid resources. But as far as comparing the corporate sector to the NGO sector, I don't think there's a difference in leadership, because end of the day, people need to be motivated. Right. And we all are working on certain deliverables. So our leadership needs to remain the same. It has to be a very democratic form of leadership, and only when it's very democratic that you can actually convince people to take have a sense of ownership. And when you have a sense of ownership, the delivery is anyway very, very different. So even if I think we as an organization don't take volunteers, but I feel that even other NGOs who take volunteers, it comes with a sense of ownership. And the moment there is ownership, I think there is delivery.
There. Very interesting. Yeah. So one more question for you before I move to the next set of questions. This is the age of the millennials and the Gen Zs, and your daughter is a Gen Z. You were just telling me about her. And from what I have seen of the young people, I mean, they're inheriting an earth that people like me have messed up and are leaving behind. How are millennials and Gen Zs changing the development sector?
I think, as you're aware, this is the woke generation. And I think they are very, very aware, very conscious, of course, thanks to the social media. And they're very vocal. I find them very, very passionate about whatever they believe in. And they want to voice it. At a very young age, I see a lot of these kids wanting to work for social justice, environmental sustainability. These are words which are very common to these people, the words that we learn much later. And I see a lot of kids who have come forward, even in Concern India Foundation, our donors' children, our own team's children who have come forward and said that I want to do this or have raised money. In fact, my own daughter started raising money at the age of 12. Wow. And she's done about, I think, 3 or 4 fundraisers by now for disability, education, and animal rights. And, it's very motivating again to see all of them actually not hesitating in reaching out to the rest of the world to share with them that this is what they believe in and why somebody should donate to them.
Correct.
So I think we have a very responsible and a very vocal generation out here.
Very true. Very true. So Nidhi, I'm now going to move to a few questions for you personally. I have time for maybe 4 or 5 questions. So, you've spent 2 decades in the sector. You chose to be in this sector, as you said, decided to do your social work in education and social work. From where you stand today, and as you look back and as you look ahead, what does success mean to Nidhi?
Okay, so I think the reason I joined the sector was basically to impact other people's life. And when I go for one of our program visits and I see a smile on the beneficiary's face, whether it's a child or an elderly person or a woman, I think that is success. When somebody comes and tells you that thanks to you, Concern India Foundation, my life has changed, or I was able to do so much more, is success for me.
Very nice. And a follow-up question from that is that who or what inspires you?
Okay, so I think there's a lot that happens on a day-to-day basis that inspires me. But again, I think it's the motivation of other people and the passion of other people. So when we look at our NGO partners, when we interact with them and we see with what kind of passion, we are still sitting in the office and only dispersing or raising money. They are out there working at the ground level. That really inspires me when they've left their careers behind or they left their families behind sometimes and really working towards making a difference in this world. That inspires me. My team, when they work on a Saturday, Sunday, and because there's a deliverable and we have to do it, that inspires me. And when people like my own daughter who actually take a step forward and said, I will do this to change this world, that inspires me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, time for two more questions. My next question to you is that if you, Nidhi, were a role model to millions of children who closely followed you and your life choices, what is the one thing you would change in yourself?
Changing myself. Okay. So I think I would say that the need to be open, the need to explore a little more, the need to get out of your comfort zone. And there's a lot happening outside. And one needs to really be saying, okay, one can do this and one can do that, and not really put restrictions on oneself. And I think with the thing that if you are open, the world just accepts you.
Very interesting. And my last question to you is on failure. For a long time, I have said that parents in India, South Asia, don't teach children it's okay to fail. We're always told, I was taught, we told our children, come first in class, go ahead of the line. And that manifests itself in our behavior patterns, which includes, three cars can come at a traffic light, but nine will come there because everyone wants to be first off the block. And an aircraft full of Indians will land and the person in the last row wants to get out first, etc., etc. Yet we fail all the time. My question to you is, what have been some of your learnings from some of your mistakes?
Okay, I think so. Like everybody else, I have made my share of mistakes, and I think we make mistakes on a daily basis. I don't think there's a single day that we don't make even it's a minor mistake. And I think I've just learned to accept if I've failed somewhere, if I made a mistake, I've just learned to accept it and analyze it and take it in my stride. I think till about a few years back, I thought I can't fail, and every time there would be a big failure, it would just make me, a little low. And then I realized, no, failure is a part of success also. You can't be successful in life without failing. And I think I've just learned to, take it in my stride, learn from every mistake, every failure, and grow as a person. So there's no one big thing that I would say, okay, this happened and it changed my life.
Yeah.
But I'm open to learning from everything, and of course, I have my boss who actually is the first person who always checks me about stuff. So I do get a lot of feedback, and I learn from my mistakes when I'm at work. And personally, also, you're very aware about where you're going wrong. I think, as I mentioned to you, that having my daughter changed my life, and I think as a parent, you kind of learn the most. You learn, and we all firstly want to be perfect parents, and you realize there's something called perfect parenting. And so I think with her, I learn again on a daily basis.
Fantastic. Nidhi, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I particularly enjoyed how many times you referred to your daughter and how fortunate she is to have a mother like you, and vice versa. I mean, I love the way you spoke about how when your staff come to work on a Saturday, Sunday, that inspires you. I think it's incredible. Thank you very much, and it's been such an interesting experience having a chat with you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. The pleasure is all mine, and thank you for having me on this chat.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the brand called You Videocast and Podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.